Terminator Dark Fate is the sixth installment of the Terminator franchise and is also the second sequel to try to ignore the events of the past few sequels that we have gotten because they have been big disappointments for fans. And in this film, after the events of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Skynet is no longer a thing. Judgment Day was stopped. We're now living in a new timeline. However, there is a new company that is now making new Terminators and a new war is taking place in the future. They send back a new Terminator played by Gabriel Luna to come back and kill a girl named Danny who is going to become very important in this future war for the Resistance. So the Resistance sends back Mackenzie Davis playing Grace, a cybernetically enhanced human, and she's going to protect Danny, and along comes Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton once again, who got wind of this and is also going to protect the girl because she has been in this situation before. After hearing that James Cameron was getting the rights back for the Terminator franchise and that Tim Miller, the director of Deadpool, a movie that I really like, was going to be attached to make this and maybe start up a new trilogy, I just really couldn't get myself too excited for it because I've been burned way too many times before with these Terminator sequels. Rise of the Machines is like a guilty pleasure kind of fun thing, but it's not technically a good movie. I just kind of like it because it goes really bonkers when it comes to the action sequences. Terminator Salvation was really boring and bland to me, despite the fact that they did try to go in a new direction with that, making a prequel trilogy. Instead, it just came across as really unimpressive to me. And then Terminator Genesis is just very middle of the road mediocre, and it tried to stick with the Terminator and Terminator 2 films only and ignore the sequels, but they just instead made something that was really confusing as far as the story. So hearing that they were just going to do the same thing again, ignore the sequels and try to do something new, I was like, we've been there before, man, but good luck Tim Miller because I think he has a bright future ahead of him. And the trailers, when the marketing campaign started, I just still wasn't all that impressed with it. The infamous I'm going hunting teaser just didn't get to me, and the latest trailer that showed more action and over-the-top stuff, even that wasn't impressing me all that much. I just couldn't go into this movie with hype levels. I did hear a lot in commercials, though, that this was the best sequel since Terminator 2, but that's not really saying much. Like, at this time in 2019, we should be at the point where we're making Terminator sequels that are better than the rest, and are at least comparable with the first two movies. So that doesn't really say that much to me. I did go in excited to finally see Linda Hamilton back as Sarah Connor, though, and of course Arnold is always a lot of fun. I went in with some hopes that this could be good in some things that I was really interested in seeing, but overall I went in really worried and just kind of middle of the road as far as what I was expecting. That being said, I did walk out of this film thinking that it was the best Terminator sequel that we have gotten since T2. But does that mean it's technically a good movie? I wouldn't say so. I'd say it's just a smidge bit better than Rise of the Machines. So, about the same as far as the Terminator rankings go. At least it's the most watchable one, though. Let's start off with some of the things that I did like. Mackenzie Davis playing Grace, I thought she did a really great job. They gave her character an interesting story that I thought was really neat, and it was really cool to see her in the action sequences as well. She is built, Mackenzie Davis. She is really jacked, so it's really believable that she could beat the crap out of all the people that she does in this. She's a really great intimidating force that this movie really needed for the character. Linda Hamilton back as Sarah Connor is obviously a great joy. She does another great job playing this character. It's been a long time since she's played her, so I was honestly kind of interested to see how she was going to play at this time, especially since they're giving her a whole new path story-wise to go down, and I thought she did a really great job handling this character. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger is fun as the Terminator. They give him jokes, they give him a really interesting new take as far as what his character has to do, so I can't say because spoilers, but all I can say is it was interesting to me, and I like that they were trying to go in a new direction with it. This does kind of lead into some of my negative thoughts on the film, is that there are certain things story-wise that don't seem to add up, and it's not like it breaks the movie like Genesis, where it was just really too confusing to really follow, but this movie does have certain things story-wise that I couldn't wrap my head around as far as having it all make sense. The movie glosses over stuff and keeps moving on as if we just answered that so we're all good, but my brain always just kind of stuck with these things like, hold on, but why this and why this? Like, I didn't really get it. Like, even though Judgment Day was stopped, this Arnold that we're seeing here was still able to be sent back in time by Skynet after T2, even though Skynet isn't a thing anymore, like, at all. Like, I don't understand. Also, they mentioned that Sarah Connor has been hunting Terminators all this time since T2 and now, but we don't know from who. Was it Skynet Terminators? Because that shouldn't be a thing, because they've been taken care of. Is it this new company of Terminators? But if it is the new company, then how come they're showing up at random locations instead of the girl Danny that we're following now. Like, why did it take so long for them to send one that is actually going after the most important person? And why have they just been showing up at random locations? Also, the way they explain how she's been getting the locations for these places where these Terminators are popping up also doesn't make all that much sense to me. So as much as it's fun to see Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger's back in these roles, there are certain things story-wise about them that just don't completely add up. And I think with another rewrite or just touching up how they were going to explain their stories, what's been going on with them, I think could have fixed that, but they just kind of rushed through it. This bold thing happens in the opening of the movie, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they did that in a mainstream movie nonetheless, but also a Terminator movie. And I thought it was a really bold thing to do, and I'm not hating on the choice at all, because it's actually really good. I just don't really like how blatant and brazen they handled it. It's like in the opening of the movie, boom, we're done with that and we're going to move on. I think it should have been something that they built up more as the movie went along, and then they reveal what happened and you're like, oh, wow. But instead they kind of get it out of the way and you're just kind of left with this kind of rushed feeling like, what just happened? And then what they explain happened since then is just really rushed too. Also, I mentioned that Arnold Schwarzenegger is very funny. Everything he said, I got a genuine laugh out of. And this movie does have a lot of funny jokes, but not all of them are real winners. There's a couple times where it's kind of in an uncomfortable kind of thud where the theater was just kind of silent and no one knew if it was a joke or not. And then you have Mackenzie Davis as Grace, who, like I said, I really enjoyed her character, but they decide to do like the typical road trip kind of cliche where as soon as Sarah Connor shows up, she now has to like try to feud her and try to bicker with her for no real reason other than it's another tough lady coming in to help. So because I'm also a tough person, I have to I don't know. I honestly, I just couldn't really buy it all that much. It didn't feel like there was a natural reason to have some moments where she's like, I really want to punch you in the face right now. And it's supposed to be a joke, but serious. And I was like, I can't buy into that. These Terminator movies, mostly the first two, are obviously praised for their groundbreaking visual effects and the action sequences. More so T2, obviously. That's like a hallmark of that movie and why it's so important. So in this movie, when we have our new Terminator played by Gabriel Luna, it really does suck to say, because he's a great actor. In this movie, he does a really good job having this personality that is supposed to blend in, this dangerous kind of person that can blend in easily like a Terminator should. He does a really good job with that, but the effects they give his character where the liquid body comes off of this metal skeleton, it's a really cool idea, obviously, but at times, especially when he's jumping from place to like a really low place to a high place, like a Jedi in Star Wars The Clone Wars, it looks really cartoony, and there are certain times where they merge back together, and I'm just like, I am watching a cartoon thing, I'm not watching a live-action person at all. And I don't need every movie to have like the most groundbreaking visual effects possible, but we kind of do at least need passable ones that are like, I'm good with that. In this movie, I was just kind of constantly taken out with certain special effects that they had. There's also, in the beginning, the action isn't all that good when they open up. It's a little too frenetic and kind of crazy, and there's some random slow-mo shots that they have. The action does get a little bit better as it goes along, though, so I was like, okay, I'm able to just kind of sit back and watch it a bit more. But not only at first is it a little too wonky and crazy, but even there are certain parts later on in the movie where that kind of repeats itself. And that's a really big shame, because Tim Miller staged these action sequences very well. There's certain things that these characters are doing where I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great idea to have a fantastic action scene. It's much better than the Genesis solution of shoot gun and have Arnold get knocked around a bit and maybe he'll punch back at one point. Like, it's much better than a lot of other like kind of lackluster kind of action movies. They try to come up with some really great ideas for these sequences, but at times some of the editing they do and the visual effects that don't look all that good can kind of get in the way of that. And I guess finally my last big issue that I kind of had with this movie was Danny, who is our new Sarah Connor or John Connor that needs to be protected. It just really wasn't that interesting to me as a character. The actress isn't doing a bad job. If she had a better character, she could probably deliver something really great performance-wise. She didn't annoy me or anything. It's just that her character doesn't have that much to her. Like, they give her an introduction scene of, she's just nice. She has brother and father and goes to work, and then stuff goes down. And it's like, I don't know anything else about this character, like, at all. You know, it seems like they're about to go into, like, the hardships that her family is suffering. Like, don't worry, I'll go talk to the boss about something that's going on. But they cut right away, and it's just kind of like, oh, I guess we don't need to learn anything that's like troubling her, where she needs to really grow, because her character does go through a growth. She's important. But in that beginning, all they really gave you was just a very basic, flat kind of intro, and throughout the rest of the movie, I was like, the actress isn't doing a bad job, just I can't care for this character, and she's supposed to be the most important thing right now. If they want to do another Terminator sequel set in the Dark Fate trilogy that they've just kicked off technically with this, I'm honestly okay with it. I hope that this isn't another Genesis where they tried something and then it failed commercially and critically, and then they're just like canceling it, scrapping it, we're done with Genesis. We're done with that proposed trilogy. I honestly do hope that Dark Fate has another installment, because where it does end off, I could see them going in an interesting direction and making something really cool. But they'd really have to learn from the mistakes of this film and write something really great. Because you can write the same Terminator story over and over again. Like, this was essentially the same idea, we're going on the run again. But you can only do that so many times, though, where certain things that you introduce story-wise or character-wise, like Danny, it all of a sudden starts to fall apart because you either don't care about it or certain things are just kind of making you a little confused. And even some action sequences, you can be entertained by them, but if they're not 100% all the time, then you're going to be taking out of it more than actually invested in it. So I hope if this movie does well this weekend, that Tim Miller can come back and make a really great sequel to this movie and finally get us to see a sequel that is actually the best one since T2, an actual good sequel that's like, you know what, we can all unanimously agree that Dark Fate 2 is the best Terminator sequel out there. They actually did something really great. I want to see that happen, but I'm still going to go into that movie, if they do make it, skeptical as always, because for 4 sequels now, we've been continuously burnt, and although this was the most watchable sequel for sure, it still suffers from a lot of similar issues that they still haven't really learned from. I'm going to give Terminator Dark Fate a C+. We have a lot of good characters here, a lot of great performers playing these characters. The action gets better as the movie goes along, and there are certain ideas that this story had that I was honestly genuinely on board with. It's just the execution of some of these ideas and how kind of rushed a lot of the explanations for certain things are really set it off. Like, there's a moment where a character shows up that Sarah Connor says, I know a guy, like, we need to progress the plot forward, I know a guy that can help. And I thought it was supposed to be a character from T2, but it wasn't. I saw the name tag and it was not who I was thinking it was. I was like, oh, well, who is this guy? And they just kind of brush through. Like, that's kind of an example of what I'm talking about here. And there's certain visual effects that I think they need a bigger budget. I hope this movie does well so they can prove that they can use a bigger budget, because the budget that they had for this one, I don't know what it is, but for some reason it can't make a good visual effect out of a lot of stuff in this movie. Some of it looks kind of cool, but then a lot of times I felt like I was looking at a cartoon. So I'm hoping for the best for the future of this Dark Fate franchise, if it goes anywhere, if it's not Genesis and they don't cancel this. But honestly, I still can't see myself getting too excited for another film. If the next film is great, then maybe I could get excited for the third, but I don't know right now. But if you've seen Terminator Dark Fate, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.